thank you. I'm going to be brief because I think everybody knows Chris. So our speaker today, Chris McCartt, city manager. And the only thing that gets me nervous, we sat down with some guests today. One of them has done my job for his whole career, and now he's been introduced to my boss. So if Chris doesn't like what I'm doing, he has a path now with Tom. But Chris grew up close by in the Lamar community, went to Crockett, got his undergraduate and graduate at ETSU, Master's in Public Administration. He is a true lover of East Tennessee, ETSU, all things Kingsport. Quite honestly, when he put his name in the ring for city manager, there's no city manager, and John knows this, throughout the whole state of Tennessee that can hold a candle to him. And he desired Kingsport. And I say that as one that's in the industry. I've seen them. There's a great group of individuals, but he leads them. And we're fortunate to have had him. He's grown up through John's and Jeff's and others before him, showing him the way, and quite honestly, we are very fortunate to have him as our city manager. So please join me in welcoming.
Well, thank you. I don't know who you had on the agenda that canceled today, but I do appreciate you giving me a shot, and hopefully I can live up to everything that Ryan just said. About a month ago, the mayor and I delivered the annual State of the City address. My portion of that was about 45 minutes. Trust me, it won't be that long today. I've cut several things out. We'll try to save some time at the end for questions, but hopefully you'll have kind of a general idea of some of the things that we've done, the reasons we've done those things, what we're working on, and kind of what the eye for the future is. So financial health, this is the area that every State of the City address that I've been to and the ones that I've delivered, we always lead off with this. This is always the number one question. What is the overall financial health of the city? I can tell you that the financial health of your city is in really good shape, and we'll walk through some of that information. Just some bullet points here to kind of talk from. We continue to do very well as it pertains to just the overall ratings we get from Moody's and S&P. I kind of view this as our annual report card. They do a financial evaluation of us. They ask a whole lot of very tough questions. We give them a ton of data. They come back with a report and a rating, and we've been able to maintain those ratings. In addition to that, we've seen unprecedented growth in sales tax. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we move through this. We are also seeing a continued growth in property tax. I anticipate that just with what we have on the books in the coming months and years, that will continue to grow. And we continue to operate very healthy from a budgetary standpoint. Overall, total budget with schools, utilities, and a general fund, $270 million. It's one of the largest budgets we've ever had, and we'll explain some of that later. Two brags on the side there that I won't put $10 in the hat for, but we continue to be leaders in the state and in the country in terms of how we manage our budget and how we report on our finances. Just recently, we've received the award for this past year's audit, and very pleased with the staff that takes the time, as well as our auditors that help put that together. Fund balance history, we are doing very well. Your rainy day fund at the end of fiscal 23 sat at, end of fiscal 22 sat at $24 million. We went in and pulled money out to go towards one-time projects that we believe were necessary to continue moving the city forward. John will tell you, anybody that's been in government will tell you, there's always something that needs to be done. There's always something that needs to be fixed. There's a road that needs to be maintained, a bridge that needs to be repaired, whatever the case may be. We're not short of work, but oftentimes it's finding the dollars to make that happen. So we pulled some of those dollars out. I suspect by the time we finish this fiscal year in June, we'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of $22 million in our fund balance. If you go back and look at those ratings from Moody's and S&P, we probably need to be up around $30 million in fund balance before we start seeing any movement in terms of an increase in rating. We look at that, but we also look at being good stewards of our dollars and looking at a healthy place for that to be. Sales tax. This one continues to exceed expectations, and even when you think you've budgeted for the growth, you find that it's still exceeding expectations. We've received July, August, and September sales tax numbers for this fiscal year. We're presently operating about $1 million above projection. Why is that? Inflation obviously is the first thing that you think about, and that is impacting it. It's impacting everything that we do. In addition to that, we have seen the online sales. I see Representative Hawk here. He was instrumental in helping make that happen. That is helping cities and counties all across this state. We're seeing online sales come in each and every month that are new. So they're new registers. I still don't have the ability to tell you what percentage of online sales comes into the city of Kingsport. I hope at some point to have that filter to be able to look at that, but it is significant. And then the other piece is industrial. Industrial growth and industrial operations, unlike a lot of other cities in the state, have a direct impact on us. If you don't believe that, look over here at Domtar and the work that they're doing. Those folks, many of those construction workers have been and continue to live in our city. They shop in our stores. They're buying supplies from our supply houses to build and do the various things over here. The same is true at Eastman. So anytime we see growth occurring, we see cranes on these sites, we realize that it's having an impact on our sales tax. Property tax, as I mentioned, continues to be moving upward. That last big jump really has a lot to do in terms of projection as it pertains to the tax increase that we did. We'll talk about that as we move through that, but we're also seeing growth within our city, which has been really good and very positive. Not only the growth that you see from folks that are moving in here through the great reshuffling of America, but also through natural organic growth. Right now we have well over 2,500 homes that are in some phase of development, whether they're in a concept phase, they're in a construction phase. We see opportunities for growth on a residential standpoint, from a residential standpoint, and we also see infill development taking place, and that is very important to us. That's a piece of that residential development and a piece of our economy that is critical for long-term success. We can't talk about financials and not talk about debt. You see three lines on here. The first one is the top line is the 20% legal limit we have. The middle line is our self-imposed 10%. This is 10% of the total assessed value. And then you see this bottom line, which kind of illustrates where we're at. We have basically, for the last several years, really been flat in terms of our debt load that we have been carrying. It's kind of been a goal for us to be able to look at that, but I can tell you, as I look into the future, into what we have on the horizon, the projects that we're looking at, we have a lot of capital needs, especially within the school system. The school system is looking to spend well over $100 million over the next decade for a lot of just renovation work that was done some 30 years ago that's now come due, as well as other things that are out there, and growth is one of those, as well as rehab. You'll be hearing a lot in the weeks ahead regarding the repairs to the DB Dome, and that comes with a pretty hefty price tag. In addition to that, this year, this budget year, fiscal 23, we intend on the general fund side to issue about $16 million in debt. One of those big ticket items is the renovation in addition to the Justice Center. Really part of the overall growth and restructuring that you've seen as we've moved into 415 Broad Street as the new City Hall. This is also providing much needed safety, security, and court modernization at the Justice Center, and Ryan's been leading those efforts, and they've been very good on all aspects of what we do. So here's the question: why'd you raise my taxes? I just got finished telling you about record growth, talking about the fact that we've got more homes that are in the pipeline than we've had in probably 30 or 40 years combined. When you look at sales tax, property tax growth, all those things are out there and existing. So why did you raise my taxes? Well, let me give you a snapshot of where we were as a city when we were working on the present year budget. We were in a lot of situations very similar to the private sector and other public entities. we were seeing the impacts of inflation. So you go back about 14 months ago, and we're sitting looking at expenses in the new budget year, and we're seeing the impact of inflation beginning to have a real big impact on capital and operating items. In addition to that, we began to see this uncertainty that was kind of filtering through the economy, coming out of Washington, coming out of a lot of the folks who monitor this. What does the future hold in terms of really just any kind of stability within the economy? But the big one is the third bullet, labor. We saw this hit us really right between the eyes probably last fall. Despite everything that we had done coming really through the latter stage of the pandemic to try to make necessary adjustments to keep up with the private sector, and in some situations what the public sector was doing, we were seeing positions stay vacant, unable to fill, and at the same time we were seeing ourselves lose a lot of skilled labor at every level of city government to other entities, a lot on the private sector. And so we started realizing we needed to make some significant adjustments in order to move forward. You then see this bullet right here. Why were people leaving? Pay. Pay was the number one reason. When we sat down and started looking at why they left, they were receiving significant increases in pay for wherever they were going. So the reality was we had to do something to make some adjustments. When we began last fiscal year, we were sitting at 65 vacancies. And in some areas, we were looking at having to really just restructure how we were doing business because we were unable to fill the position. So we present all this to the board. We really began to talk to them about the fact that we've got to get competitive in pay, in benefits, in the area that I really like talking to our new employees about, and that's culture. If you've worked for the city of Kingsport, and a lot of the folks in this room have for many, many years, you know there's something different about our culture and how we operate as a city. It is very unique, and I talk to new hires about that, and that's a big part of who we are, but we also recognize we need to become very competitive. The board stepped up to the plate. We put a 12-cent tax increase, and we were able to use those dollars to then push towards identifying pay. We did on average about a 7% pay raise across the board. We made pretty significant adjustments to some of the benefits. We have new benefits that we're bringing on board. And we also began to move forward with rejoining the Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System. A decision that financially we had to leave about a decade ago. We're now able to come back thanks to some pretty bold steps that have been done by the state to get cost controls in there. So had we not done this, we would have been forced to have to go in and really make some pretty significant cuts to the operating budget and potentially into the service delivery side, just in order to maintain the basics of the city of Kingsport and what people have come to expect. That would have prevented us from being competitive, which is, I know, where everyone in this room wants to be when we look at our position within the region and what we need to do as a city to continue to be a leader in the region. Economic development. So as I stated in the State of the City, and I'll tell you all the same statement, the only thing that I'm asked about more are the goats on Cement Hill. This subject is a subject that is of high priority, as it should be. So when I became city manager, I had a desire to hire an individual, and for that individual to put a team of people together, and that their sole purpose every single day would be to get up and think about economic development. That's all I wanted them to do. It was something that we really hadn't been doing for several years. We had individuals working on economic development, but they were doing a lot of other things as well. I did not want that. I wanted someone who was going to get up every single day and think about this. And so our role in economic development is the middleman. I love when I get phone calls and people ask me, why in the world did you all tear down Shoney's? Or why in the world have you built another car wash? Or why have you not brought this store into our city? Well, we really don't control that. It's really up to the private sector and the property owners We get involved from a zoning standpoint, and there are some situations where we're asked to come to the table to help recruit and incentivize, but we function really in the middle, and that is where most cities are. We don't own the mall. We don't own Main Street. We don't own a lot of the commercial sectors within the city, but what we are able to do now is to really be out there and be a champion for these property owners to go and find retailers, talk to them, sell ourselves, tell our story, and really work to bring them to our city. So, what have we been able to do? Well, John Rose is our Economic Development Director. I believe he has been here and talked to you all. Stephen Bauer is his assistant. The two of them work very well together with a lot of our partners, some of which are in the room, as well as other partners that are within the Economic Development Board, to do a lot of the things you see here on the table. Probably the biggest thing that we're doing is getting out and telling our story. We're working with a company called Buxton that helps put together data for us. It also provides analytics for us to review and allows us to be very targeted in going and talking to companies. For example, we would go and talk to a potential retail store that we've seen in similar cities that has a similar demographic that we view as a void in our area and try to bring them in. And so we have been extremely successful over the last 2.5 years, really working towards getting a lot of things addressed from the economic development standpoint. Traditionally, when I talk about economic development, I don't like to talk about letters of intent, LOI. I typically like to talk about a lease because it's a done deal at that point. But I want to give you all an idea of what we are doing at a city level and the results that we are seeing, and that is a tremendous amount of interest, a tremendous amount of interest in the historic retail centers within our city. So you think about Eastman Road, you think about Kingsport Pavilion where Target is, the mall. So what we are seeing with that, and I can tell you now that Kingsport Pavilion, they have a LOI on every single vacant space that they have, which is unbelievable. Why does that occurred? Well, a lot of it has been us out shaking the trees, but also they have a new owner, and that new owner is willing to make investments, and so that's very critical. We've had some great success with the mall. The mall is often criticized, but the owners of the mall are probably some of the best people we've worked with. We have 2 very significant projects that we are in works with them on right now. One they are getting ready to close on this month. Another one I think we'll see materialize in calendar 23. Same is true with East Stone Commons, and we're also seeing a lot of work take place downtown. One of the things that I find as I travel just around Northeast Tennessee, but also across the state of Tennessee, when they look at our downtown, they're very, very jealous of our downtown. And they're jealous because of the amount of diversity that we have. A lot of downtowns, they open the doors after 5 o'clock. Other downtowns, they're only open between 8 and 5. We have that potential. We have, and we see additional potential of having a downtown that begins its day well before 8 and is in operation well after 8 at night. And so that helps us in terms of being able to have a workforce downtown to support businesses. It also helps as we bring people into downtown. So you look that you've got a grocery store in your downtown, you've got your banking in your downtown, you've got medical offices downtown, you have retail, you have government downtown. A lot of those things are critical to that long-term success, and a lot of really unique things happening in downtown. Proud moments. This is probably the part of the state of the city that I enjoy talking about the most because it really allows me to highlight a lot of the outstanding city employees and the work that they are doing for our city and to really put the spotlight on them. You've heard a lot about this project, the Brickyard Village, Brickyard Park. A lot of exciting things happening over there. Eden's Land, a group that's out of Raleigh, North Carolina, they'll begin work in the first part of 23 to begin the first phases of this development. But we took this project and we kind of asked the question, we kind of thought, hey, this is pretty unique. We took an old brickyard, We bought it. We looked at a variety of uses. We settled on this. Is it something unique, or is it just kind of our own thinking? Well, the reality was we entered this into the American Planning Association. We got a phone call that we were going to receive an award and that we ought to go out to San Diego, California. So 2 of my staff members got on the plane before I could say whether I could go or not, got out there, and when they got there, they realized that not only did they receive recognition for this award, it received the overall award from every city that entered in the United States as being the biggest economic development impact and receiving the highest economic development recognition. So it validated everything we thought, and it also helped put a spotlight on Kingsport on a national level. Probably looking around the room, many of you all have not been to the skate park. It's okay. I hope you will at least take some time to drive by. This is one of those things that when we built it, we really didn't think much other than we were going to replace what we had, but we brought in a very unique design team to work with us on this. They really sat down and talked to a lot of the users of the skate park. What they ultimately ended up with is probably something that has exceeded everybody's expectations. If you believe anything on social media, and I'll be the first to tell you don't believe anything on social media, but believe this, they are telling us that this is probably the best skate park in all of the Southeast. And so can't think of something for me more rewarding, very emotional decision that we had to make to move the park. If you know the history behind it, you'll understand that statement. But to have this and to be able to open this up, in that picture, the guy in the blue shorts is Scott Adams' dad. And so he was there to be part of that ribbon cutting, and the park has just been wildly successful. This year at the Pinnacle Awards for Tourism, Bays Mountain Park really racked up an outstanding job that is being done there. Great leadership that is occurring at various levels to kind of re-energize that park, and so very excited about the work that they were able to do. A lot of their awards centered around the 50-year anniversary, but also some of the projects that they are getting ready to unveil. This is the one that I will tell you I'm probably the most excited about. BK Addington, you see the guy there in the middle holding the plaque. BK's been with the city for 30 plus years. And BK won this award, and this is the Murphy Snodley Award. It's probably, if you're in the public works field, and if you're in the state of Tennessee, this is a very coveted award. It's always given to what we would consider a line employee, and it's done so through various types of consideration and qualifications. Let me tell you though about BK and one of the reasons why he got this award. So several years ago, we have probably one of our first public works days over here at the farmers market. We're set up over there. A young man comes up and he starts talking to BK about his job and what he does and why he enjoys it and what he likes about it and everything. Had a great conversation. Well, several years later, that same guy came to work for the city of Kingsport because of his conversation with BK, and now he works with BK. And so he's a great representation of the Kingsport spirit. He does an outstanding job for us, and we're glad to have him on our team. This is a big award for us because it's one we've been chasing for some time. We believe very strongly in this messaging and the protection of our waterways and really the way we've gone about doing it. So very proud to be able to bring that. Carousel, I cannot talk enough about that. It's one that just continues to amaze us. This was a partnership with Visit Kingsport and the city of Kingsport to get this recognition. If I had $1 for every text message I got the day this appeared on the Today Show, we could have bought y'all lunch today. People are so excited about it. It's a project that continues to just generate that passion and excitement for our city. Something different that we did this year with 4th of July. If you know me, you know I'm competitive. I saw about a year and a half ago an opportunity to stick our foot in the door and get ahead of a city just down the road that we don't care much for. And we had an opportunity to kind of jump in and kind of be a leader on 4th of July, something we have not been able to say in quite some time. City of Kingsport put about $125,000 towards this. We had a ton of sponsorships that then helped kind of bring some of that money back in. We brought in 38 Special. We had an outstanding fireworks show. Probably 20,000 people were downtown just on Main Street, countless more around. The comments and the accolades that we've received from this have been outstanding. We're doing it again this year. We've got another great band picked out, so we're excited about that. Our police department, one that I know we have a tremendous amount of pride in for our city. One that I'm happy to say that we're probably for the first time in at least a decade fully staffed now. And so we're very excited about that. They received some very outstanding awards that you can see here. And I appreciate the work that Chief Phipps and his team are doing. Again, making themselves not only regional leaders, state leaders, but now being recognized within the Southeast for the work that they're doing. Some of our recent projects, and I'll go quick because I want to save some time for questions. Our fire training facility has recently opened. That is a facility that we've been working on for some time. Training, being able to retain the people that we train, and being able to make sure that we're putting them in the best possible situation every time with the right training has always been a priority, continues to be as well. A lot of money going back into parks and recreation. We've recently completed some work at the Linview Community Center, Riverview in terms of pickleball courts that we've put in, basketball courts, playgrounds, renovations to the senior center. I like doing those things. I like reinvesting back into existing assets, and that's been very favorable. Allendale has also seen a lot of work for the very first time since we received this property. We went in and repaved the driveways, rebuilt that. We've done some new landscaping. We've got some exciting things happening there this Christmas as well, so hopefully you'll have some time to look at that. Downtown, we're beginning to see the new bus garage come out of the ground. This is important because it opens up a tremendous amount of property for us to be able to expand in the academic village. Dennis Phillips and I met the other day with Jeff McCartt, and one of the things he said is that while higher education may be suffering in terms of getting people on board, RCAM and the trades are not. They have waiting lists. They need additional space to expand, so we're glad to be able to bring that. Recycling has been a topic that we've talked a lot about. I don't know if you will ever see us go back to curbside recycling, but one of the things that we're doing is trying to make it more convenient for our citizens and businesses that choose to recycle to be able to do so. This sits behind the Civic Auditorium. It's a new convenience center that we've put in. We have others that we have planned in the future, and we'll begin pushing those out soon. Paving continues to be a priority for this city. I'm estimating somewhere in the neighborhood about $3.5 to $3.6 million in paving that has been funded for this fiscal year. And so we're glad to be able to continue moving that forward to make sure that our infrastructure is sound. Great work has been done by a lot of folks to be in that position, and I'm very pleased with that work as well. Water meters. I know you have heard about this, and I know there's been a lot of conversation about this. This was one of those things that kind of is like stepping on the rake in the yard. It hits you in the back of the head and you just weren't expecting it. When we started looking at this was premature failure of a battery. The premature failure of that battery was well before we anticipated it. That battery was necessary to convey to us what your consumption was. The meter still recorded that consumption, but it was necessary for that battery to relay it to us. When that battery failed, it really began to have a huge impact on how we read that meter. Sometimes you would receive a bill that would be multiple months of consumption or multiple days of consumption, going well beyond the historic 30 days. We've installed roughly 20,000 meters. We've got about 10,000 that we'll install this year, another 10,000 in next fiscal year. A lot of new technology that is coming with that allow us to read it from City Hall. Everybody that I've ever sat down and talked to that have had concerns over the bill, and the mayor will tell you this, and Ryan will as well, they've walked away with an understanding of that. Unfortunately, social media has told a different story. We're not charging you for more than what you've consumed. It's just a matter of how it's been recorded. Thankfully, we're back on a 30-day schedule. Ryan leads a team of folks that meets twice a week, focusing in on this. A lot of work is being done to get back on a regular billing cycle, and we have been for some time, and quite pleased with that. So what's on the horizon? We'll kind of wrap it up. Smart cities. We're talking more and more about this. We've got to recognize as we do that technology is what's driving us and how much more efficient that we will operate. We will be moving forward with a budget ordinance next week that allocate about $90,000 to IBM to write some software that, yes, believe it or not, will take decades old software that we have and allow it to communicate with new software packages that we have, which results in a tremendous efficiency for us. We're moving to some new agenda management software that takes what has historically probably been about, over a 2-week period, about 40 hours worth of work down to about 30 minutes. In addition to that, we have software that is allowing us to use credit cards to book facilities, to manage assets in the field. All of that is technology driven, and there's more on the horizon. So as we work on this, you're going to be seeing a lot of that. You're also going to see that reflected in our budget as we have to spend more in the IT realm to stay on top of that. Main Street. Dennis Phillips had just moved to Kingsport back in the late 1960s when we started work on this project. And thankfully, we have crews on the ground that are beginning the rebuild. This was one of those things that I came to work in Kingsport in 1997. There was a discussion in 97 about the rebuild of Main Street. We started looking at it very seriously around 2014, and the realization that we needed to just completely pull this street up, replace all of the blue mud, if you know what that is, underneath it with engineered fill, new utilities, bury some utilities, the communication side of that, power lines, move to the other side. But really at the end of the day, we're creating a beautiful streetscape that will be Main Street. It will help us as we work towards making I-26, John B. Dennis, Wilcox, Sullivan Street, Main Street part of our front door. And we're underway, Summers and Taylor, about a $17 million project. So it's extensive. It'll be 2 years. I'll ask you to bear with us as we go through this, but it is one that has a transformational impact on our downtown. I know you've heard about this project. This is one I want you to be excited about. I want this to be one that you're talking to your neighbors about. This has a huge potential for us. Paula Bucayo's here. She's been very instrumental from Eastman's side in helping us get to this point. Next week, the Economic Development Board will entertain a lease for the building that this clinic will go in. We have a goal that this clinic will become a 4-year dental school in Kingsport, Tennessee, with a unique partnership between the University of Tennessee, ETSU, Ballard, and the city of Kingsport. I can't begin to express to you how excited I am, but how excited a lot of players are on this and what it means to our city. Long term, this is a game changer, and we're hoping that we'll see the fruits of that labor work out. You've read in the paper about the Lingard master plan that's underway. That's long overdue, but it helps us look at the opportunities that exist there. Cement Hill, the goats, again, a lot of exciting things happening over there. We will actually approve next week the pump track. This will be co-located with the skate park. The goal here, along with the development, the open space or the 5-acre green space that we'll have there, as well as Cement Hill, is really to be a magnet for downtown, to draw people in and to be able to utilize that for economic development purposes. The board recently made a decision to put the second tranche of the ARPA money towards the library. When John Campbell came here as our city manager, he asked that we start looking at the library. Well, we're finally getting there, and so great renovation that will be taking place. This is also viewed as a magnet for us in terms of bringing people into downtown, especially in the children's area where we are woefully behind our competition. Bays Mountain Park Amphitheater, very excited to get this project going in this fiscal year, and really excited what it can do from a programming standpoint. Another great partnership that we have with Eastman to make that a reality. Of course, education, I mentioned that at the beginning. That is going to be dominating a lot of our budget conversations, not only in the years to come, but immediate in the months to come, in terms of the things that need to be done there in order to continue having Kingsport function at a very high level. Justice Center, I mentioned that. We hope to begin work on that this spring. A lot of work has been done, and again, a project that is overdue just from a security and modernization standpoint. I'll close with this, and this may be one of the most important things that I say to you, so if you haven't remembered anything I've said to this point, wake up and remember this. It is very important in this day and age, maybe more so than it ever has been, for you all, the folks in this room, to be connected and to stay connected in ways in order to help us tell what is factual. I was recently at the International City Managers Conference. John will know these names, but Bob O'Neill and John Nalbanyan had an afternoon class just on this subject, just on these topics, and talking to us about how, as city managers, we spend far more time in this arena than we have ever been before. And so we have a job to get factual information out. Every single day, the communications team reminds me, shows me of inaccurate information that is out there in social media. It's not just Kingsport, folks. It's every city in America that is facing this. We are not alone. So how do you do this? Well, you follow us. If you're on social media, on Facebook, go to Kingsport Alerts. If you're on social media, go to This is Kingsport. Check out our website. Download the Connect Kingsport app. That's a direct shot into what we're doing and how you can communicate with us. Folks often tell me, I'm calling the city manager or I'm calling the mayor because I want to get X fixed. I will tell you a little secret. The quickest way to get that fix is to have the Connect Kingsport app on your phone, plug that in. It goes directly to the individual who is responsible for fixing it, and they go take care of it. It's part of the whole Smart City initiative, but it also gives you an avenue into what we're doing and how you all can help spread the positive news of what is occurring in your city, because it is positive. And there's a lot of great things on the horizon. So, I felt like an auctioneer. I've got time for questions if you have any.